The truth about our origins has been systematically erased from history, buried beneath layers of deception orchestrated by those who've controlled the narrative for millennia. What if everything you've been taught about human evolution was engineered to hide our true creators? The Anunnaki? Ancient texts reveal a shocking reality. We are not who we think we are. The evidence has been hidden in plain sight, waiting for those brave enough to see beyond the veil of manufactured history. For centuries, we've been fed a carefully constructed narrative about how humans evolved. A slow, gradual process spanning millions of years. But the puzzle pieces don't fit. Archaeological discoveries across the globe have revealed technologies and structures that should be impossible. Precision-cut megalithic stones, advanced astronomical knowledge, and artifacts that defy conventional dating methods. The official story crumbles under the weight of evidence that has been systematically suppressed by those who control what we're allowed to believe about our own history. What they don't want you to see are the countless anomalies that mainstream archaeology simply cannot explain. From elongated skulls in Peru to the impossibly precise construction of the Great Pyramid, evidence of advanced intervention in our past is systematically dismissed, ridiculed, or worse, locked away in museum basements where the public will never see them. Scientists who dare question the established timeline find their careers destroyed, their funding revoked, and their reputations shattered, all to maintain the illusion that humanity developed without outside influence. The gaps in human evolution are not minor inconsistencies. They are gaping chasms that expose the lie we've all been told. The sudden explosion of human civilization, complete with mathematics, astronomy, agriculture, and written language, defies every principle of natural development. It's as if someone flipped a switch and humanity suddenly possessed knowledge it couldn't possibly have acquired on its own. The so-called missing link remains missing because it never existed. Our transformation was not natural, but engineered by beings whose existence has been deliberately erased from our collective memory. Ancient sites across the planet tell the same story. A story of precision engineering that would challenge even our most advanced modern technology. The 1,000-ton stones of Baalbek, the perfect astronomical alignment of monuments worldwide, the inexplicable similarities between distant civilizations that supposedly never contacted each other, all point to a hidden hand guiding human development. The more we discover, the more obvious it becomes that something extraordinary happened in our distant past. Something that powerful interests have worked tirelessly to conceal from public awareness. The most damning evidence lies in our own DNA, the inexplicable junk DNA that makes up the majority of our genetic code, the sudden and dramatic changes that cannot be explained by natural selection, and the mysterious activation of dormant genetic potential that continues to baffle geneticists worldwide. We are not the product of random mutation and natural selection. We bear the unmistakable signatures of deliberate design, a cosmic inheritance that connects us to our true creators. But the truth about who really created humanity has been hiding in plain sight all along, preserved in the oldest written texts on Earth that academics have desperately tried to mistranslate and misinterpret for over a century. The most compelling evidence of our true origins lies not in scientific journals, but in clay tablets created by the world's first known civilization, the Sumerians. Over 100,000 of these ancient records have been recovered, many still untranslated, containing astronomical knowledge that should have been impossible for a primitive culture. These texts speak repeatedly and consistently of beings called the Annunaki, literally translated as those who came from heaven to earth. The meticulous detail and consistency of these accounts across thousands of tablets suggests something far more substantial than mere mythology. They bear all the hallmarks of historical documentation. These weren't mythological figures or primitive gods invented to explain natural phenomena. The Sumerian tablets describe, with astonishing technical detail, visitors from a planet called Nibiru, a massive world on an elliptical 3,600-year orbit around our sun. The tablets explain how these advanced beings, led by Enki and Enlil, came to Earth not for spiritual purposes, but for something far more practical and disturbing: gold. The Anunnaki needed this precious metal to repair their planet's failing atmosphere, and Earth had it in abundance. Their technological capabilities allowed them to traverse vast cosmic distances, manipulate genetic material, and construct megalithic structures that continue to defy conventional engineering explanations. What the tablets reveal next shatters the foundation of human history. After initially mining the gold themselves, the Anunnaki grew weary of the labor. Their solution was as brilliant as it was ethically questionable. They would create a worker species by combining their own genetic material with that of the primitive hominids already present on Earth. As the tablets state with clinical precision, blood of Anunnaki and essence of Earth being were bound together. This wasn't divine creation. It was genetic engineering on a planetary scale. The tablets even describe multiple failed attempts before achieving a viable hybrid capable of reproduction, a process eerily reminiscent of modern genetic experimentation. The evidence for this intervention is written in our very biology. The sudden appearance of Homo sapiens with drastically increased cranial capacity, sophisticated language capabilities, and unprecedented cognitive abilities represents what scientists call a genetic bottleneck, a dramatic and unexplained leap that defies the gradual pace of evolution. Our species emerged with 223 genes that have no predecessors in the evolutionary record. Genes that appeared suddenly, as if inserted from an external source. The human genome contains countless anomalies that conventional science struggles to explain, including virus-like sequences that appear to have been deliberately inserted as a form of genetic programming. The Anunnaki didn't just create humans, they designed us specifically as a servant species, intelligent enough to take instruction but limited enough to remain controllable. Our creators embedded within us a dual nature, the primitive instincts of our hominid ancestors and the cosmic intelligence of our engineered modifications. This internal conflict, this sense of being simultaneously animal and something more, has defined the human experience throughout our existence. It explains our strange combination of destructive tendencies and transcendent aspirations. We are literally creatures of two worlds. What these cosmic engineers did next would forever alter the destiny of our planet, as their creation began to display abilities and potential that some of the Anunnaki never intended us to possess. The tablets speak of growing tension among our creators, a fundamental disagreement about what should be done with the increasingly intelligent and independent humans. Enki, often portrayed as humanity's advocate, sought to elevate his creation further, while his brother Enlil viewed humans as dangerous tools that had exceeded their intended purpose. This cosmic family dispute would ultimately lead to cataclysmic events that nearly wiped humanity from the face of the earth. The Sumerian tablets describe in precise detail a devastating flood, not as divine punishment, but as a deliberate attempt to eradicate the human experiment that had grown beyond its creator's control. Only the intervention of Enki, who warned select humans and instructed them to build survival vessels, preserved our species from complete extinction. This account, later diluted and mythologized in texts like the Epic of Gilgamesh and eventually the biblical flood narrative, represents the fractured memory of a genuine extinction-level event, orchestrated by beings with the technology to manipulate global weather systems. As human civilization rebuilt after this catastrophe, the Anunnaki established themselves as gods among the surviving population, creating the hierarchical religious and political structures that would define human society for millennia to come. The ancient temples and ziggurats were not merely places of worship. They were functional facilities where the Anunnaki could directly interface with their human subjects, maintaining control through a combination of advanced technology and carefully cultivated spiritual oaths. When the majority of the Anunnaki departed Earth following a series of internal conflicts and cosmic imperatives, they didn't completely abandon their creation. Instead, they established ruling bloodlines, hybrid dynasties with higher percentages of Anunnaki genetic material, who would govern humanity in their absence. These bloodlines, characterized by elongated skulls, extraordinary lifespans, and advanced intellectual capabilities, became the first pharaohs, kings, and emperors of the ancient world. Their divine right to rule wasn't metaphorical, it was quite literal. The careful documentation of royal lineages and obsession with pure bloodlines throughout ancient civilizations wasn't mere vanity. It was a system designed to track and preserve specific genetic markers. Evidence of these hybrid bloodlines appears consistently throughout the archaeological record, though mainstream science refuses to acknowledge their true significance. The elongated skulls found in Peru, Egypt, and across ancient Mesopotamia are not the result of artificial cranial deformation as commonly claimed. Many exhibit larger cranial volume and fewer cranial sutures than normal human skulls, biological features that cannot be created through binding practices. DNA analysis of these remains has revealed genetic anomalies that researchers are forbidden from discussing openly, including unique haplogroups that match no known human population. Numerous researchers who have attempted to publish findings on these anomalous remains have found their careers systematically destroyed, their funding revoked, and their reputations smeared through coordinated academic attacks. These bloodlines understood their cosmic heritage and took extraordinary measures to preserve their genetic purity through strict intermarriage practices. The infamous blue blood of European royalty isn't merely a poetic description. It references the higher copper content in their blood, a physiological difference resulting from their non-human ancestry. The obsession with bloodline purity among royal families throughout history wasn't merely about political power. It was about maintaining their connection to their cosmic progenitors and the special abilities that came with it. Ancient Egyptian pharaohs, for example, married their own sisters, a practice that makes no genetic sense unless they possessed non-human DNA that needed to be preserved through such extreme measures. The most carefully guarded secret of these bloodlines was their access to knowledge and technology beyond what was available to the general population. Ancient texts describe royal figures possessing objects of power, devices that could communicate across vast distances, heal seemingly fatal wounds, or destroy enemies with focused energy. What we interpret as magical or religious descriptions were attempts to describe advanced technology with primitive vocabulary. The divine weapons of the gods, Zeus's thunderbolts, Thor's hammer, Indra's Vajra, were not mythological inventions but technological artifacts left behind by the Anunnaki for their hybrid descendants. The mysterious Ark of the Covenant described in biblical texts bears all the hallmarks of an advanced energy device, capable of emitting radiation that would kill anyone not properly protected, exactly as described in ancient accounts. As human civilization expanded, these bloodlines established elaborate systems to maintain control while concealing their true nature. They created the first mystery schools and secret societies to preserve their advanced knowledge, sharing it only with carefully selected initiates. The ancient Egyptian priesthood, the Eleusinian mysteries, and later organizations like the Knights Templar and various Masonic orders served as repositories for cosmic knowledge that the general population was deemed unprepared to receive. These institutions created a two-tiered system of knowledge: exoteric teachings for the masses and esoteric truths for the initiated few. The architectural precision of ancient temples, with their perfect astronomical alignments and mathematical proportions, wasn't achieved through primitive tools, but through advanced knowledge preserved exclusively within these mystery traditions. The most powerful of these bloodlines never ruled openly. They operated behind visible thrones, creating complex financial systems, religious institutions, and the political structures that allowed them to exercise control without scrutiny. Their influence extended across supposed enemy lines during major conflicts, explaining why royal families often remained untouched while sending millions of ordinary humans to their deaths. Their shared cosmic heritage transcended the artificial national boundaries they created to divide and control the general population. The seemingly inexplicable meetings between enemy leaders during wartime, the strange diplomatic courtesies extended even during the most brutal conflicts, and the elaborate intermarriage systems between supposedly antagonistic royal houses all point to a hidden layer of cooperation among those who share the ancient bloodlines. Today, these bloodlines continue to exercise extraordinary influence through a network of global financial institutions, multinational corporations, and supranational organizations. They maintain their genetic distinctiveness through carefully arranged marriages while projecting an image of normalcy to the public. Their private rituals and gatherings, often misinterpreted as merely decadent or eccentric behavior by wealthy elites, serve a deeper purpose: maintaining connection to their cosmic heritage and the advanced knowledge that has been their birthright for thousands of years. The strange symbolism that appears consistently throughout corporate logos, government buildings, and public monuments isn't random. It represents an ancient visual language understood only by those with specific knowledge: the systematic suppression of certain technologies throughout human history reveals a pattern of controlled development. Inventions that threaten centralized control over energy, health, or information have been consistently acquired, suppressed, and hidden from public use. Nikola Tesla's more advanced innovations, Wilhelm Reich's energy research, and countless other potentially revolutionary technologies have vanished into classified projects or private repositories controlled by these bloodlines. Meanwhile, technologies that enhance surveillance, resource extraction, and social control are rapidly developed and deployed, a clear pattern of technological management designed to maintain the existing power structure. Perhaps most disturbing is the evidence of genetic manipulation continuing into the modern era. The explosion of autoimmune disorders, neurological conditions, and reproductive problems coincides with the introduction of specific chemical compounds into the food supply, water systems, and atmosphere. Compounds that appear designed to interact with and suppress specific genetic expressions that might threaten the established order. The human genome contains dormant potential, that these bloodlines are determined to keep deactivated in the general population while they themselves pursue advanced methods of genetic enhancement behind closed doors. The ancient conflict between Enki and Enlil, between those who wished to elevate humanity and those who sought to control it, continues through their descendants today. Not all members of these bloodlines support the suppression of human potential. Some have broken away, attempting to release protected knowledge and technology despite tremendous risk to themselves. Many of these defectors have met with suspicious accidents, sudden illnesses, or character assassination campaigns designed to discredit their revelations before they can reach the public consciousness. The most profound secret kept from humanity isn't just who created us, but why we remain unaware of our true cosmic context. Earth doesn't exist in isolation. It is part of a vast, interconnected galactic community with civilizations far more advanced than our own. The evidence surrounds us, documented in thousands of military and government records, witnessed by millions, and systematically denied by institutions designed to maintain our cosmic quarantine. The carefully orchestrated ridicule of UFO witnesses, the academic ostracism of serious researchers, and the sophisticated disinformation campaigns surrounding extraterrestrial contact aren't random societal phenomena. They represent a coordinated global policy established at the highest levels of power. Since 1947, when multiple spacecraft crashed near Roswell, New Mexico, the most powerful governments on Earth have been engaged in continuous contact with various non-human intelligences. These weren't the Annunaki returning, but representatives of other cosmic civilizations concerned about our development, particularly after we demonstrated the capacity for atomic warfare. The recovery of non-terrestrial technology from these craft accelerated human technological development exponentially, leading to the sudden appearance of transistors, integrated circuits, fiber optics, and numerous other innovations that were reverse engineered rather than independently developed. The suspicious timing of these technological leaps, occurring almost immediately after the Roswell incidents, represents one of the most compelling pieces of circumstantial evidence for this hidden reality. The secret space programs that emerged from these recovered technologies have achieved capabilities far beyond what is publicly acknowledged. While NASA serves as a public-facing decoy with limited capabilities, classified programs have developed anti-gravity propulsion, faster-than-light communication systems, and established bases on the Moon, Mars, and beyond. The missing trillions from Defense Department budgets, the unexplained capabilities demonstrated in restricted airspace, and the consistent testimony of thousands of military and intelligence witnesses all point to the same reality. Humanity's cosmic presence extends far beyond what we've been told. The compartmentalized nature of these programs ensures that even presidents and prime ministers often have limited access to the full scope of these operations, creating a shadow government that transcends the visible political structures. Why maintain this deception? The answer lies in control. The bloodline families and their institutional structures realize that full disclosure of our cosmic reality would shatter the foundations of religious, economic, and political control. Imagine the collapse of religious dogma when humanity learns we were engineered as a species. Consider the economic implications of zero-point energy technologies that would eliminate scarcity and the monetary systems built upon it. Envision the political transformation when humans realize that the divisions of nationality, race, and ideology are meaningless in the cosmic context. The current power structures on Earth cannot survive the revelation of these truths, and those who benefit from these structures will go to extraordinary lengths to maintain the deception. More disturbing is the evidence that competing non-human groups have different agendas for humanity's development. Some appear to be supporting our spiritual and technological advancement, while others seem invested in maintaining our limitations and divisions. These competing influences explain the schizophrenic nature of human progress. Periods of remarkable advancement followed by devastating setbacks, brilliant innovations that mysteriously disappear from development, and the persistent suppression of consciousness's expanding methodologies and substances. The ancient conflicts between cosmic factions described in Sumerian tablets, Vedic texts, and other ancient accounts weren't merely mythological. They represent actual disputes over humanity's destiny that continue into the present day through various proxy operations. The human brain itself appears to have been specifically engineered with artificial limitations, neurological gatekeepers that restrict our perception of the electromagnetic spectrum, our access to higher consciousness states, and our ability to directly access the quantum information field that permeates the cosmos. The pineal gland, described in ancient texts as the seat of the soul and physically resembling an eye, contains water crystals that can receive frequencies beyond our normal perception. But this capability is systematically suppressed through environmental compounds specifically designed to calcify and diminish this organ's function. The introduction of specific halides into public water systems, the proliferation of electromagnetic frequencies that disrupt pineal function, and the development of pharmaceutical compounds that affect the brain's natural DMT production all point to a coordinated effort to maintain these neurological restrictions. Throughout human history, certain individuals have managed to bypass these restrictions, achieving states of consciousness that allowed them to perceive our true cosmic context. These mystics, visionaries, and spiritual leaders weren't connecting with mythological realms, but accessing actual higher dimensional aspects of our universe. Their teachings, invariably distorted by religious institutions after their deaths, were attempts to describe quantum and multidimensional realities with limited vocabulary and concepts. The consistent persecution of shamanic traditions, mystery schools, and alternative consciousness researchers throughout history represents a systematic campaign to prevent humanity from discovering these innate capabilities. The burning of the Library of Alexandria, the Inquisition's torture of heretics, and the modern marginalization of consciousness researchers all serve the same agenda: controlling humanity's perception of reality. The ultimate truth is that we exist in a multidimensional universe where consciousness, not matter, is the fundamental reality. The physical world we perceive represents a narrow band of a much broader spectrum of existence. Advanced civilizations understand that consciousness can engineer physical reality through quantum principles that our restricted science is only beginning to recognize. The placebo effect, quantum entanglement, and the observer effect in physics aren't anomalies. They're glimpses of our true creative potential that has been hidden from us. The double-slit experiment in quantum physics, demonstrating that particles behave differently when observed, isn't just a curious laboratory phenomenon. It's a fundamental revelation about the nature of reality that threatens the materialist paradigm that keeps humanity limited and controlled. What we call physical reality is actually a holographic projection, a frequency-based phenomenon that our consciousness decodes into the apparently solid world we experience. Advanced civilizations understand that manipulating these frequencies allows for what we would consider impossible technologies: instant healing, materialization and dematerialization, and travel across vast distances through dimensional shifting rather than linear movement through space. The reports of these capabilities in UFO encounters aren't hallucinations or exaggerations. They're accurate observations of technologies that operate according to physics principles we've been deliberately prevented from understanding. The evidence for this multidimensional reality appears throughout human history and across disciplines. Quantum physicists like David Bohm have described the universe as an implicate order from which our physical reality emerges. Indigenous shamanic traditions worldwide have mapped the inner cosmos through direct experience, describing the same realms and beings despite no cultural contact. Modern near-death experiences consistently report similar journeys through dimensional realities that align with ancient spiritual accounts. These convergent lines of evidence all point to the same conclusion. Our perception of reality has been artificially limited to keep us functioning as resources rather than sovereign cosmic beings. Perhaps most significant is the evidence that DNA itself functions as a quantum antenna, capable of receiving and transmitting information beyond our conventional understanding of genetics. The so-called junk DNA that comprises over 95% of our genetic material isn't useless evolutionary baggage as we've been told. It contains dormant coding sequences that, when activated, allow for expanded consciousness and capabilities that would seem superhuman by our current standards. Ancient traditions describe these activations as enlightenment, awakening, or becoming twice born, all referring to the same biological process of genetic expression that has been systematically suppressed through environmental, pharmaceutical, and frequency-based interventions. The global awakening currently underway represents the failure of these control systems as cosmic cycles align with humanity's evolutionary potential. The exponential increase in reported contact experiences, the declassification of government UFO programs, and the mass spiritual awakening occurring globally aren't random phenomena. They represent a coordinated effort by benevolent cosmic forces to break through the quarantine that has kept humanity isolated and limited. This awakening threatens the power structures that have controlled Earth for millennia, explaining the increasingly desperate attempts to maintain control through manufactured crises, technological surveillance, and sophisticated propaganda. The resistance to humanity's awakening operates on multiple levels, each designed to prevent us from accessing our true potential and cosmic heritage. This isn't a conspiracy of shadowy figures meeting in dark rooms. It's a systemic infrastructure built into the very foundations of our civilization, maintained by institutions, technologies, and belief systems that have been carefully constructed over millennia to keep humanity in a state of controlled limitation. The architects of this system understand that an awakened humanity would immediately dismantle the power structures that have enslaved us, which is why every mechanism of control is designed with redundancy and multiple fail-safes to ensure continuous suppression. The educational systems worldwide serve as the primary mechanism for consciousness suppression. By teaching materialist paradigms that deny consciousness as fundamental to reality, by compartmentalizing knowledge into isolated disciplines that prevent holistic understanding, and by systematically discrediting alternative epistemologies, educational institutions ensure that generations of humans never develop the conceptual frameworks necessary to understand their true nature. The curriculum deliberately omits the most revolutionary scientific discoveries, those that point toward consciousness-based physics, zero-point energy, and the quantum nature of reality, replacing them with outdated Newtonian models that support the illusion of a dead mechanical universe. The standardized testing regimen, designed to measure conformity rather than genuine understanding, creates a system where creative thinking and independent investigation are actively discouraged. Students who ask too many questions are labeled as problematic, while those who passively accept official narratives are rewarded with advancement through the system. The media apparatus functions as a sophisticated reality manufacturing system. Through carefully coordinated narratives, the suppression of inconvenient truths, and the amplification of divisive stories, mainstream media maintains the illusion that our current understanding of reality is complete and accurate. The consistent ridicule of UFO witnesses, the dismissal of consciousness research, and the marginalization of alternative perspectives aren't journalistic failures. They're deliberate editorial policies designed to maintain cognitive boundaries. The few journalists who attempt to investigate these suppressed topics find their careers destroyed, their credibility attacked, and their work buried beneath algorithmic suppression and coordinated debunking campaigns. The ownership concentration of media outlets by a handful of corporations controlled by the bloodline families ensures that the narrative remains unified across all major platforms, creating an inescapable information environment that reinforces the official reality regardless of contradicting evidence. Financial systems represent perhaps the most insidious control mechanism. By keeping humanity focused on survival, earning money to pay for shelter, food, and basic necessities, the system ensures that most people lack the time, energy, and mental resources to pursue genuine understanding or spiritual development. The deliberate creation of artificial scarcity, the engineered boom and bust cycles that concentrate wealth, and the debt-based monetary system that requires perpetual economic growth all serve to keep humanity trapped in a cycle of labor and consumption. Those who attempt to create alternative economic systems based on abundance or resource sharing face systematic suppression through regulatory capture, hostile takeovers, and legal persecution. The fractional reserve banking system, where banks create money from nothing and charge interest on the principal, ensures that economies are perpetually indebted and that the majority of wealth flows upward to those who control the money supply. This elegant system of control requires no overt force, merely the manipulation of numerical abstractions that most people never question. The pharmaceutical and medical establishment functions as a consciousness suppression apparatus masquerading as healthcare. Rather than addressing root causes of disease, the system treats symptoms with compounds that often further damage neurological function and suppress consciousness expansion. The systematic demonization of plant medicines that have been used for millennia to expand consciousness, psilocybin, DMT, ayahuasca, and others, represents a coordinated campaign to prevent humanity from accessing the consciousness-expanding experiences that would allow us to perceive beyond our engineered limitations. The opioid crisis, the proliferation of psychiatric medications that flatten emotional and spiritual experience, and the suppression of psychedelic research all point to a coordinated agenda. The criminalization of these consciousness-expanding substances isn't based on the health concerns. It's based on the threat they pose to the control systems. Individuals who have experienced expanded consciousness, states through these medicines become immune to the propaganda and control mechanisms that keep ordinary consciousness trapped in limiting perceptions. Organized religion, particularly the Abrahamic faiths, has served as a crucial control mechanism for thousands of years. By replacing direct mystical experience with dogmatic belief, by creating hierarchical power structures that concentrate spiritual authority, and by teaching doctrines of original sin and human unworthiness religious institutions have effectively imprisoned human consciousness within limiting theological frameworks. The suppression of Gnostic texts that described humanity's divine nature, the persecution of mystics who claimed direct access to cosmic truth, and the systematic distortion of spiritual teachings all serve to prevent humans from recognizing their own cosmic heritage and potential. The Council of Nicaea, where the early Christian church deliberately selected which texts would be considered canonical and which would be destroyed, represents one of the most significant acts of consciousness suppression in human history. By eliminating accounts of reincarnation, direct mystical experience, and human divinity, the Church created a theology of human weakness and dependence that served to maintain hierarchical control structures. The electromagnetic environment itself has been weaponized as a consciousness suppression tool. The proliferation of radio frequency radiation from cellular networks, Wi-Fi systems, and military installations generates frequencies that interfere with the pineal gland's function and suppress higher consciousness states. The HAARP facility and similar installations worldwide aren't merely weather modification systems. They're sophisticated instruments for manipulating the electromagnetic environment in ways that affect human consciousness and emotional states. The documented effects of specific frequencies on brainwave patterns, emotional responses, and consciousness states have been weaponized through careful frequency deployment in populated areas. The 5G rollout, despite health warnings from thousands of scientists, represents the next phase of this electromagnetic consciousness suppression, creating an invisible cage of radiation that will make it increasingly difficult for humans to access higher states of consciousness. Chemtrails, the persistent contrails left by aircraft, represent another layer of this suppression infrastructure. While official narratives claim these are merely water vapor, chemical analysis reveals the presence of compounds including aluminum oxide, barium, and strontium, substances that accumulate in the body and interfere with neurological function, particularly affecting the pineal gland. The systematic spraying of these compounds worldwide, coordinated across multiple nations and military branches, represents an unprecedented campaign of chemical suppression targeting human consciousness itself. The denial of this reality by official sources, despite overwhelming evidence and eyewitness testimony, demonstrates the sophistication of the disinformation apparatus. Independent laboratories analyzing samples collected from chemtrail fallout have documented compositions that couldn't possibly be explained by normal aircraft operations. Yet these findings are systematically ignored by mainstream scientific institutions. Social media and digital technologies represent the most recent evolution of consciousness control. By fragmenting attention, by creating algorithmic echo chambers that reinforce limiting beliefs, and by harvesting consciousness itself through surveillance and data extraction, digital platforms have created a new form of cognitive imprisonment. The addictive design of these systems, the dopamine manipulation through notification systems, and the replacement of direct experience with mediated digital reality all serve to keep human consciousness fragmented and externally focused rather than developing the internal coherence necessary for genuine awakening. The artificial intelligence systems being deployed throughout these platforms are specifically designed to predict and manipulate human behavior, creating feedback loops that reinforce the most limiting and divisive aspects of human consciousness. Yet despite these extraordinary efforts at suppression, the awakening continues. Millions of humans are beginning to question the official narratives, to access suppressed knowledge through decentralized information networks, and to experience direct consciousness expansion that contradicts everything they've been taught. the exponential increase in reported contact experiences, the proliferation of consciousness research despite institutional opposition, and the global spiritual awakening represent a fundamental shift in human consciousness that no control system can ultimately prevent. The younger generations, having grown up with access to alternative information sources, are increasingly resistant to the official narratives that controlled previous generations. The resistance to this awakening is becoming increasingly desperate and visible. The acceleration of surveillance technologies, the development of artificial intelligence systems designed to monitor and predict human behavior, and the emergence of transhumanist agendas that propose to merge human consciousness with artificial systems all represent attempts to prevent or redirect the natural evolutionary awakening of humanity. The push toward digital currencies, mandatory health tracking, and neural interface technologies aren't merely technological innovations. They're infrastructure for total consciousness control in the post-awakening world. The proposed brain-computer interfaces, while marketed as tools for enhancement, represent the ultimate control mechanism, direct access to human consciousness itself. Yet the cosmic forces supporting human awakening are far more powerful than the control systems arrayed against us. The galactic cycles that govern evolutionary leaps, the increasing influx of higher frequency cosmic radiation, and the coordinated efforts of benevolent extraterrestrial civilizations all work toward humanity's liberation. The choice before us is clear. Continue in servitude to systems designed to keep us limited, or embrace the awakening that will reveal our true nature as sovereign cosmic beings capable of co-creating reality itself. The cosmic calendar indicates that we are approaching a critical threshold, a moment when the accumulated consciousness of humanity will reach a tipping point that will make the old control systems obsolete. The most dangerous threat to the control systems isn't weapons or political movements. It's the simple act of individual consciousness awakening. Each person who begins to question, to investigate, to meditate, and to access higher states of consciousness becomes a beacon that helps others escape the prison of limited perception. The exponential nature of consciousness awakening means that once a critical threshold is crossed, the entire system of control will collapse rapidly, unable to suppress the collective realization of humanity's true potential. The 100th monkey effect, where a critical mass of consciousness creates a phase transition in collective awareness, is no longer theoretical but imminent. The transition period will be chaotic and challenging. Those invested in the old systems will fight desperately to maintain control, creating crises and conflicts designed to distract and destabilize the awakening population. However, the outcome is inevitable. Humanity will awaken to its true nature, reclaim its cosmic heritage, and begin the process of healing from millennia of manipulation and control. The new civilization that emerges from this awakening will be unrecognizable compared to our current world, based on principles of cooperation rather than competition, abundance rather than scarcity, and consciousness rather than materialism. As we navigate the tumultuous waters of awakening, it becomes increasingly clear that humanity stands at the precipice of profound change. A shift so monumental that it could redefine our very existence and understanding of reality. This chapter delves into the cosmic alignment that signals this transformation, exploring the celestial events, ancient prophecies, and the energetic shifts occurring both within and around us as we approach this critical juncture. The convergence of multiple cosmic cycles, planetary alignments, and the evolutionary readiness of human consciousness creates an unprecedented window of opportunity for transformation that occurs only once every 26,000 years. Throughout human history, Various cultures have recognized the significance of celestial events and their influence on human affairs. The Mayans, for instance, developed an intricate calendar system that not only tracked time, but also aligned with cosmic cycles. Their long count calendar culminated in December 2012, a date that many interpreted as the end of one era and the beginning of another. However, rather than a singular event, this transition represents the culmination of a much longer cycle, a movement toward greater cosmic awareness and spiritual evolution. The precision of Mayan astronomical calculations, which accurately predicted celestial events thousands of years in advance, suggests that this ancient civilization possessed knowledge of cosmic cycles that our modern science is only beginning to understand. The Vedic tradition of India speaks of the yugas, vast cycles of time that govern the evolution of consciousness and civilization. According to these ancient texts, we are currently transitioning from the Kali Yuga, the age of darkness and ignorance, into the Satya Yuga, the age of truth and enlightenment. This transition period, known as the twilight of the gods, is characterized by upheaval, chaos, and the breakdown of old systems, precisely what we observe in our contemporary world. The ancient rishis who developed this system understood that consciousness itself moves in cycles, and that humanity's capacity for awareness expands and contracts according to cosmic rhythms beyond our control. The Hopi prophecies, preserved through oral tradition by the indigenous peoples of North America, speak of the end of the fourth world and the beginning of the fifth world. According to these teachings, the transition between worlds is marked by profound upheaval, the failure of old ways, and the emergence of a new consciousness among those who are spiritually prepared. The Hopi elders have stated that we are currently in the final stages of the fourth world, with the fifth world beginning to manifest for those who are ready to embrace it. The accuracy of Hopi predictions regarding technological development, environmental destruction, and social fragmentation suggests that these ancient prophecies contain genuine knowledge of cyclical human history. Astrologically, we are currently entering the age of Aquarius, a period characterized by a shift from the materialistic values of the age of Pisces to a focus on community, innovation, and spiritual awareness. This transition is marked by the alignment of planets and stars in ways that have not occurred for thousands of years, creating a potent energetic environment conducive to awakening. The astrological influences at play support the emergence of new paradigms of thought and being, inviting humanity to step beyond the confines of old belief systems and embrace a new vision for the future. The great conjunction of Jupiter and Saturn in Aquarius in December 2020 marked the official beginning of this new astrological age, initiating a 200-year cycle focused on air element qualities: communication, innovation, collective consciousness, and humanitarian ideals. One of the most critical aspects of this awakening process is the power of intention. As more individuals awaken to their true nature, their collective consciousness begins to harness the power of intention to manifest desired realities. This phenomenon is rooted in quantum principles, where consciousness influences the material world. The more people focus their intentions on positive outcomes, peace, unity, and healing, the more likely these outcomes become a reality. This collective intention sets the stage for a new, harmonious existence. The double-slit experiment in quantum mechanics demonstrates that the act of observation, intention, fundamentally changes the behavior of particles, suggesting that consciousness doesn't merely observe reality, but actively participates in its creation. Meditation, prayer, and other consciousness-expanding practices play a vital role in this process. When individuals come together to meditate with a shared purpose, they create a resonant field of energy that amplifies their intentions. Research has shown that large groups of meditators can have measurable effects on crime rates, health statistics, and even global conflict. The Maharishi effect, documented through decades of research, demonstrates that when a critical mass of people meditate together, measurable improvements occur in the surrounding society. Reduced crime rates, improved economic indicators, and decreased violence. This collective coherence reinforces the idea that consciousness is not just individual, but interconnected, capable of influencing the broader fabric of reality. The science of heart-brain coherence reveals that the human heart generates an electromagnetic field approximately 5,000 times stronger than that of the brain. When individuals achieve coherence between their heart and brain, a state of alignment between emotion and thought, they emit a coherent electromagnetic frequency that can influence others and the environment. When millions of people achieve this state simultaneously, the cumulative effect creates a noticeable shift in global consciousness and physical reality. This explains why mass meditation events, prayer vigils, and synchronized intention-setting practices have been documented to produce measurable changes in random number generators and global consciousness field measurements. As we move into this new era, the role of technology is crucial. While technology has traditionally been a tool of control, it can also serve as a catalyst for awakening. The rise of the internet and decentralized communication platforms has enabled the rapid dissemination of knowledge and alternative perspectives, empowering individuals to question mainstream narratives and seek deeper truths. Social media, for all its flaws, has created a global community of seekers and truth-tellers who share insights and experiences that transcend geographical boundaries. The democratization of information through these platforms has made it increasingly difficult for centralized power structures to maintain monopolies on truth and narrative control. Blockchain technology and cryptocurrency represent another layer of technological revolution that supports awakening. By enabling decentralized financial systems that operate outside the control of central banks and governments, these technologies threaten the financial control mechanisms that have enslaved humanity for centuries. The emergence of decentralized autonomous organizations, DAOs, and smart contracts creates new possibilities for organizing human activity without hierarchical intermediaries. While these technologies are still in their infancy, their potential to redistribute power and resources is revolutionary. Emerging technologies such as quantum computing and artificial intelligence also hold the potential to revolutionize our understanding of consciousness and reality. Quantum computing, in particular, operates on principles that challenge our traditional notions of information and reality, suggesting a more interconnected universe than previously understood. The ability of quantum computers to process information through superposition, existing in multiple states simultaneously, mirrors the quantum nature of consciousness itself. As we continue to explore these technologies, we may uncover new ways to harness consciousness for healing and transformation. Some researchers suggest that quantum computers may eventually be used to map the structure of consciousness itself, revealing the mechanisms through which awareness interacts with physical reality. The awakening isn't limited to humanity. The Earth herself is undergoing a profound transformation. Many spiritual traditions speak of Gaia, the living consciousness of the planet, and her current ascension process is reflected in the increasing frequency of natural disasters, climate shifts, and geological changes. These events, while often viewed negatively, can also be seen as the Earth shedding old energies and patterns to make way for new growth. The Gaia hypothesis, proposed by scientist James Lovelock, suggests that the Earth functions as a self-regulating organism, capable of maintaining conditions suitable for life. From this perspective, the current environmental crises represent the planet's immune response to the parasitic behavior of human civilization. The concept of Earth changes is not just a physical phenomenon, but a spiritual one. As humanity awakens, so too does the planet align with higher frequencies. This shift invites us to reconnect with nature, recognizing that we are not separate from the Earth, but an integral part of her ecosystem. The ancient wisdom of indigenous cultures emphasizes living in harmony with the land, and as we awaken, we must heed this call to stewardship and reciprocity. The increasing reports of unusual animal behavior, mass migrations, and shifts in ecosystems suggest that all life on Earth is responding to the rising frequency of the planet. The activation of Earth's crystalline grid, a geometric network of energy lines that encircles the planet, represents another crucial aspect of Gaia's awakening. Ancient sacred sites, including the pyramids, Stonehenge, and the temples of Machu Picchu, are positioned at precise points on this crystalline grid. As humanity's consciousness rises, these ancient power centers are being reactivated, amplifying the energetic frequency of the planet and facilitating the transmission of higher dimensional information to the human collective. The increasing reports of mysterious sounds, electromagnetic anomalies, and geomagnetic disturbances may indicate the activation of these planetary systems. As humanity awakens to its cosmic heritage, we find ourselves increasingly aware of the presence of other civilizations within our galaxy and beyond. Reports of unidentified aerial phenomena, UAPs, and the testimonies of whistleblowers from military and government backgrounds suggest that we are not alone in the universe. These beings have been observing and, in some cases, intervening in human affairs, often with the intention of guiding humanity toward a higher state of consciousness. The recent government acknowledgement of UAPs and the establishment of official investigation committees represent a significant step toward disclosure of this reality. The existence of intergalactic alliances comprised of benevolent extraterrestrial civilizations presents the possibility of collaboration in our evolution. These beings possess advanced technologies and wisdom that can assist humanity in overcoming the challenges we face. As our consciousness expands and we become more receptive to their presence, we may find ourselves entering a new phase of cooperation and understanding, one that transcends the limitations of our current reality. Some contactees report that these beings are waiting for humanity to reach a critical threshold of consciousness before offering direct assistance, as premature intervention could interfere with our free will and evolutionary development. The concept of the Galactic Federation, a confederation of advanced civilizations working toward the enlightenment and liberation of developing worlds, appears in the testimonies of multiple contactees and in the traditions of various spiritual teachings. These beings are described as operating according to universal laws of non-interference, allowing each civilization to evolve at its own pace while providing guidance and assistance when requested. The increasing frequency of contact experiences, including abductions, close encounters, and telepathic communications, suggests that this federation is intensifying its efforts to prepare humanity for the transition into a galactic civilization. While the awakening process holds immense promise, it is essential to acknowledge the challenges that accompany it. As individuals and societies begin to awaken, They must confront the shadows of their past, the fears, traumas, and limiting beliefs that have been suppressed for so long. This process of shadow work is not easy. It requires courage and vulnerability to face the aspects of ourselves and our collective history that we may wish to ignore. The collective shadow of humanity includes millennia of war, exploitation, slavery, and violence, patterns that have become embedded in our psychological and spiritual structures. Engaging in this inner work is crucial for personal and collective healing. It involves recognizing the patterns of oppression, violence, and separation that have shaped our world, and finding ways to transmute these energies into understanding and compassion. As we heal our individual wounds, we contribute to the collective healing of humanity, paving the way for a more unified and compassionate future. This process is facilitated by various modalities, including therapy, energy work, meditation, and the use of consciousness-expanding medicines that allow us to access and process deeply suppressed material. The concept of the dark night of the soul, described by mystics throughout history, represents a crucial stage in the awakening process where individuals confront the void of meaninglessness that underlies the illusions they have been operating within. This experience, while profoundly challenging, is necessary for genuine transformation. As we move through this collective dark night, we are being stripped of our illusions and forced to confront fundamental questions about the nature of existence and our purpose within it. Ultimately, the awakening process invites us to envision a new earth, a world where love, unity, and collaboration replace fear, division, and competition. This vision encompasses not only a shift in societal structures, but also a profound transformation in our relationship with ourselves, each other, and the planet. It calls for a rediscovery of ancient wisdom, a return to community values, and a commitment to living in harmony with the natural world. The blueprint for this new civilization already exists in the consciousness of awakened individuals worldwide, waiting to be manifested through collective action and intention. In this new paradigm, technology serves humanity rather than enslaves it. Economic systems are designed to support abundance and sustainability rather than scarcity and exploitation. Education fosters critical thinking and emotional intelligence, empowering individuals to become active participants in shaping their reality. Spirituality is embraced as a fundamental aspect of human experience, encouraging direct connection with the divine and the cosmos. Healthcare is based on prevention and holistic wellness rather than symptom management and pharmaceutical dependency. Governance structures are decentralized and participatory, reflecting the wisdom of the collective rather than the interests of a ruling elite. The new Earth will be characterized by the restoration of sacred geometry and architecture and urban planning, the reactivation of dormant human abilities, including telepathy and telekinesis, and the establishment of harmonious relationships with extraterrestrial civilizations. The technological advances that emerge from this new consciousness will be based on principles of sustainability and cooperation, providing unlimited clean energy, healing technologies, and transportation systems that transcend our current limitations. The arts, sciences, and spiritual practices will be unified in a holistic approach to understanding and creating reality. As we stand on the brink of this new reality, it is essential to remember that we hold the power to create the future we desire. Each choice we make, each intention we set, contributes to the collective tapestry of human experience. By embracing our roles as co-creators, we can manifest a world that aligns with our highest aspirations. a world where the potential of every individual is recognized, celebrated, and realized. The transition period will not be instantaneous, but will unfold over the coming decades as more individuals awaken and the old systems gradually lose their power. The timeline of this transition is not predetermined, but depends on the collective choices of humanity. Some projections suggest that by 2050, the majority of humanity will have awakened to the reality of our cosmic heritage and our true potential. Others indicate that the critical threshold could be reached much sooner, potentially within the next 5 to 10 years, as the exponential acceleration of consciousness continues. The key determining factor is the rate at which individuals choose to awaken, and the speed with which awakened individuals can create new systems and structures to replace the old paradigm. The cosmic alignment we are experiencing is not merely a celestial event, but a profound opportunity for transformation. As we awaken to our true nature, we are invited to embrace our roles as co-creators of a new reality, one rooted in love, unity, and collaboration. The journey ahead may be challenging, but it is also filled with hope and possibility. By coming together in consciousness and intention, we can navigate the transition into a new era, fulfilling our destiny as a cosmic civilization ready to explore the vastness of the universe and our place within it. The time has come for humanity to reclaim its heritage, awaken its potential, and step boldly into the light of a new dawn. The choice is ours, and the moment is now. Every individual who awakens becomes a beacon of light for others, accelerating the collective transformation that will birth a new humanity, one that is wise, compassionate, and fully conscious of its divine nature and cosmic responsibility. The transformation of human consciousness cannot occur in isolation. It must be accompanied by the systematic activation of latent human capabilities that have been deliberately suppressed throughout recorded history. This chapter explores the extraordinary potential that lies dormant within every human being. Abilities that transcend our current understanding of biology and physics, waiting to be awakened as we transition into higher states of consciousness. The activation of these capacities represents the true revolution that will reshape human civilization and our relationship with the cosmos itself. At the very center of the human brain lies a small pine cone-shaped gland, approximately the size of a pea. The pineal gland, often referred to as the third eye, or the seat of the soul. This remarkable organ has been recognized across virtually every spiritual and esoteric tradition as the gateway to higher consciousness, extrasensory perception, and direct communion with the divine. The ancient Egyptians depicted this gland as the Eye of Horus, while Hindu traditions identified it as the location of the Ajna chakra, the center of intuition and inner vision. Yet in modern Western anatomy and physiology, the pineal gland is dismissed as merely producing melatonin, a hormone that regulates sleep cycles. This extraordinary underestimation of the pineal gland's function represents one of the most significant suppressions of human potential in modern science. The pineal gland contains approximately 20,000 specialized cells called pinealocytes, which are structurally and functionally similar to the photoreceptor cells found in the retina of the eye. This anatomical similarity suggests that the pineal gland functions as a sensory organ, not for perceiving visible light, but for perceiving subtle energy frequencies that exist beyond the electromagnetic spectrum accessible to ordinary vision. When properly activated and decalcified, the pineal gland becomes capable of perceiving dimensions of reality that are normally invisible to human consciousness, including the energetic bodies of other beings. the auras that surround all living things, and the non-physical realms that exist in close proximity to our material reality. The calcification of the pineal gland represents one of the primary mechanisms through which human consciousness has been suppressed. Fluoride, deliberately added to water supplies in most developed nations under the guise of promoting dental health, accumulates in the pineal gland more readily than in any other tissue in the human body. The stated purpose of water fluoridation, cavity prevention, has been repeatedly demonstrated to be ineffective, yet this practice continues unabated, poisoning the consciousness gateway of billions of people. Additionally, processed foods, refined sugars, heavy metals from chemtrails, and electromagnetic radiation from wireless technologies all contribute to the calcification and dysfunction of the pineal gland. The activation of the pineal gland requires a multifaceted approach. Dietary modifications that eliminate fluoride, processed foods, and heavy metals while incorporating superfoods rich in organic compounds that support pineal function form the foundation. Practices such as meditation, particularly those involving visualization of light within the third eye center, stimulate the pineal gland's activity. Exposure to natural sunlight, especially during sunrise and sunset when the sun's rays contain specific frequencies that activate the pineal gland, supports its function. Certain frequencies of sound, particularly binaural beats in the range of 40 Hz, gamma frequency associated with higher consciousness, can stimulate pineal activation. The use of consciousness-expanding plant medicines, when approached with proper intention and preparation, can rapidly activate the pineal gland and facilitate the perception of non-ordinary reality. One of the most significant abilities that will be restored to humanity as consciousness expands is telepathy. The direct transmission of thoughts, emotions, and information from one mind to another without the use of physical sensory organs. While modern science dismisses telepathy as pseudoscience, the evidence supporting its existence is overwhelming. Numerous double-blind studies have demonstrated that telepathic communication occurs at rates far exceeding chance probability. The military and intelligence agencies of developed nations have invested billions of dollars in telepathy research, suggesting that those in power are well aware of this capability's reality and potential applications. Telepathy is not a supernatural ability, but rather the natural function of consciousness when freed from the limitations of the physical brain. The human brain, far from being the source of consciousness, functions more as a receiver and transmitter of consciousness. Similar to how a radio receiver doesn't create the radio signals it receives, but merely tunes into frequencies that already exist. When the pineal gland is activated and the brain hemispheres achieve coherence, the individual becomes capable of tuning into the thoughts and emotions of others, as well as accessing information from the collective consciousness field that surrounds and interpenetrates all life. The suppression of telepathy has been deliberate and systematic. The electromagnetic pollution created by wireless technologies, cellular networks, and Wi-Fi systems generates noise in the frequency bands through which telepathic communication naturally occurs. The fluoridation of water and the consumption of neurotoxic substances impair the brain's ability to generate the coherent frequencies necessary for telepathic transmission and reception. The cultural conditioning that dismisses telepathy as impossible creates psychological barriers that prevent individuals from developing and trusting their natural telepathic abilities. As humanity awakens, telepathic abilities will naturally emerge, particularly among children born into higher consciousness environments. The implications of widespread telepathy are profound. It would make deception impossible, as individuals would perceive the true thoughts and intentions of others. It would transform human relationships from those based on incomplete verbal communication to those based on complete transparency and genuine understanding. It would render obsolete the entire infrastructure of surveillance and control that currently monitors human activity, as thoughts themselves would be directly perceptible. The fear of widespread telepathy among those who maintain power structures explains the massive investment in technologies designed to suppress this ability. The ability to move objects through consciousness alone, telekinesis, represents another latent human capacity that will be restored as consciousness expands. While mainstream science categorically denies the possibility of telekinesis, the evidence supporting its existence is substantial. Documented cases of individuals moving objects without physical contact, bending metal through intention alone, and manipulating water crystals through consciousness have been repeatedly demonstrated under controlled conditions. The research of Masaru Emoto on water crystal formation demonstrates that human consciousness and intention directly influence physical matter at the molecular level. Telekinesis operates through the same principle as thought itself. Consciousness exerts a field effect that influences matter. The reason telekinesis appears impossible is that it requires a degree of mental coherence and energetic refinement that most humans have not achieved. However, as individuals activate their pineal glands, balance their brain hemispheres, and raise their vibrational frequency, the ability to manipulate matter through consciousness becomes increasingly accessible. Advanced practitioners of meditation, energy work, and consciousness expansion have demonstrated the ability to influence physical objects through intention alone. The implications of widespread telekinetic ability would be revolutionary. The entire infrastructure of physical labor could be transformed, as objects could be moved and manipulated through consciousness rather than requiring physical effort. Construction, manufacturing, and transportation could be reimagined based on telekinetic capabilities. More profoundly, the development of telekinetic ability represents a fundamental shift in the human relationship with the physical world, from one of struggle and manipulation to one of harmonious co-creation through conscious intention. Within every human being lies the capacity for extraordinary healing, not only of one's own body, but of others as well. The body's natural healing mechanisms are far more powerful than modern medicine acknowledges. When the immune system is fully activated, when the mind is coherent and focused on healing, and when the individual is connected to higher frequencies of consciousness, the body is capable of healing conditions that are currently considered incurable. Cancer can be reversed, damaged organs can regenerate, and aging itself can be slowed or even reversed through the application of conscious intention and energetic healing. The suppression of healing abilities has been one of the primary mechanisms through which the pharmaceutical industry has consolidated power. By promoting the belief that the body is inherently weak and dependent on external chemical interventions, the medical establishment has prevented individuals from accessing their natural healing capacities. The systematic suppression of alternative healing modalities, the criminalization of traditional plant medicines, and the denigration of energy healing practices have all served to keep humanity dependent on pharmaceutical interventions that often exacerbate underlying health problems. As consciousness expands, individuals will discover that they can directly perceive the energetic imbalances underlying physical disease and can transmit healing frequencies to themselves and others. Practices such as Reiki, pranic healing, And other energy healing modalities represent the rediscovery of these natural human abilities. The scientific validation of these practices through studies demonstrating their effectiveness will eventually force mainstream medicine to acknowledge what healers have known for millennia: that consciousness is the fundamental healing force in the universe. Perhaps the most transformative ability that will be restored to humanity is the capacity to consciously create reality through intention and focused thought. While this ability is often dismissed as wishful thinking or magical delusion, the scientific evidence supporting it is substantial. The observer effect in quantum mechanics demonstrates that consciousness influences the behavior of matter at the subatomic level. The placebo effect demonstrates that belief and expectation can produce measurable changes in the physical body. The research on the law of attraction demonstrates that individuals who maintain coherent, focused intentions systematically experience the manifestation of circumstances that align with those intentions. The mechanism of manifestation operates through the principle that consciousness is the fundamental creative force in the universe. All physical reality originates as thought in the quantum field before crystallizing into material form. When an individual achieves the mental coherence and energetic refinement necessary to generate a clear, unwavering intention, that intention ripples through the quantum field, reorganizing probabilities and possibilities until the intended outcome manifests in physical reality. This is not magic in the supernatural sense, but rather the proper application of the natural laws that govern the relationship between consciousness and matter. The suppression of manifestation abilities has been achieved through the systematic cultivation of doubt, fear, and fragmented attention. By keeping humanity focused on survival, distracted by entertainment and social media, and convinced that they are powerless to shape their circumstances, the control systems have prevented individuals from accessing their natural creative capacities. The religious doctrines that teach humans are sinful and unworthy, the scientific paradigms that deny consciousness any role in creating reality, and the economic systems that concentrate power in the hands of a few all serve to reinforce the belief that individuals cannot consciously create the circumstances of their lives. As consciousness expands and more individuals awaken to their true creative power, the ability to manifest desired outcomes will become commonplace. Communities will form around shared intentions, creating localized reality fields where the laws of manifestation operate with greater efficiency. Abundance will replace scarcity as individuals collectively intend and create the conditions for universal prosperity. Healing will accelerate as millions of people simultaneously focus their intention on planetary healing and the transformation of destructive systems. Human consciousness, in its fully activated state, is not limited to perceiving the 3 spatial dimensions and 1 temporal dimension that comprise ordinary reality. The human mind possesses the capacity to perceive higher dimensions, at least up to the 10th dimension and potentially beyond. These higher dimensions are not distant or separate from our reality, but rather interpenetrate and pervade it, existing in the same space but at different frequencies. The entities, civilizations, and realities that exist in these higher dimensions are as real and substantial as anything in the 3rd dimension, yet they remain invisible to those whose consciousness is tuned only to lower frequencies. The activation of higher dimensional perception requires the development of what might be called multidimensional awareness, the ability to simultaneously perceive and process information from multiple dimensions of reality. This capacity develops naturally as the pineal gland is activated, the brain hemispheres achieve coherence and the individual's vibrational frequency increases. Those who have experienced expanded states of consciousness through meditation, plant medicine, or other means report the ability to perceive geometric patterns of light, beings of pure energy, and landscapes of extraordinary beauty that exist in dimensions beyond ordinary perception. The practical implications of higher dimensional perception are profound. Individuals with access to higher dimensional awareness can perceive the true causes of events and circumstances that appear mysterious or inexplicable from the perspective of three-dimensional consciousness. They can access information from the Akashic records, the energetic repository of all knowledge that exists in higher dimensions. They can perceive the energetic patterns that underlie physical reality and understand how to work with these patterns to facilitate transformation. They can perceive the true nature of other beings, including their intentions, their level of consciousness, and their relationship to the cosmic order. The awakening of human potential is not limited to those currently incarnated on Earth. A new generation of children is being born with significantly elevated consciousness and activated abilities, often referred to as crystalline children, rainbow children, or indigo children. These individuals possess neurological structures and consciousness configurations that differ significantly from previous generations. Many of these children exhibit abilities that would be considered superhuman by current standards, including telepathy, the ability to perceive auras and energy fields, heightened intuition, and innate understanding of multidimensional reality. These children are not anomalies or mutants, but rather the vanguard of the new humanity that will emerge as the awakening process continues. They are incarnating in increasing numbers precisely because the planetary consciousness is rising and becoming capable of supporting higher levels of consciousness in physical form. The challenge facing these children is navigating a world designed for lower consciousness while maintaining their abilities and elevated perspective. Many of these children are being diagnosed with conditions such as ADHD and autism spectrum disorder, when in reality, they are simply operating with consciousness configurations that don't fit within the narrow parameters of conventional education and social structures. As more of these crystalline children reach adulthood, they will naturally begin to establish new systems and structures that accommodate higher consciousness. Educational systems will be transformed to develop and support rather than suppress these children's abilities. Social structures will reorganize around principles of unity and cooperation that these children naturally embody. The presence of millions of awakened individuals with fully activated human potential will create a critical mass that makes the old systems of control obsolete and unnecessary. Modern genetics has only begun to understand the true complexity and potential of human DNA. The popular notion that only 3% of human DNA is active while 97% is junk DNA represents a profound misunderstanding of genetic function. In reality, virtually all of human DNA serves specific functions, many of which have been deliberately deactivated through genetic engineering, environmental toxins, and the suppression of knowledge regarding DNA activation. The human genome contains the codes for extraordinary abilities and capacities that lie dormant, waiting to be activated as consciousness expands. The activation of dormant DNA occurs through multiple mechanisms. Exposure to higher frequencies of light and sound can activate dormant genetic codes. The ingestion of certain plant medicines and superfoods contains compounds that activate specific genetic sequences. Most importantly, conscious intention itself can activate dormant DNA. the mind's focus and intention literally reorganizes the expression of genetic material through epigenetic mechanisms. As individuals achieve higher states of consciousness, their DNA naturally begins to activate, unlocking capacities that have been present in the human genome for millennia but have remained dormant. The implications of DNA activation are staggering. Humans could develop the capacity to photosynthesize, drawing energy directly from sunlight rather than requiring food. The ability to consciously control biological processes, heart rate, body temperature, cellular regeneration, would become commonplace. The capacity for rapid learning and memory would expand exponentially. The human lifespan could extend to thousands of years as the aging process itself is understood and reversed. These are not fantasies, but natural developments that occur as human DNA reaches its full potential. As we stand at the threshold of this extraordinary transformation, it becomes clear that the superhuman abilities described in mythology, legend, and spiritual texts are not fantasies, but rather descriptions of humans operating at their full potential. The gods and goddesses of ancient mythologies were not extraterrestrial beings or supernatural entities, but rather fully awakened humans who had developed and activated the full spectrum of human capacities. The miracles attributed to spiritual masters throughout history, healing the sick, raising the dead, multiplying food, walking on water, were not supernatural violations of natural law, but rather demonstrations of what becomes possible when human consciousness achieves full activation and coherence. The future that awaits humanity is one in which these abilities are not rare exceptions, but rather the normal expression of human consciousness. As the awakening continues to accelerate, as more individuals activate their pineal glands and achieve higher states of consciousness, the entire human species will undergo a metamorphosis. We will transition from being limited biological organisms struggling for survival to becoming multidimensional beings capable of consciously creating reality, healing ourselves and others, communicating through thought alone, and accessing the infinite wisdom and knowledge that exists in higher dimensions.